New Year's Eve. Laughter filled the house, the sound of glasses clinking, music echoing softly. Everyone counted down, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and then when it reached 5, Maria fell. My wife, my world. For a second, no one understood what had happened. Then someone screamed, "Call 911!" Fireworks burst outside, colors flashing across her still face. I knelt beside her, my hands shaking. "Maria, please, stay with me." Her eyes didn't move. Her heart had stopped. My name is Jack Harris. I'm 45, a history teacher in a small Oregon town. I used to tell my students that time never stops for anyone. But that night I wished it would. Just 1 minute, just long enough to save her. Maria was my light. Dulce, our 17-year-old daughter, inherited her calm eyes. Mask, our boy, had her laughter. That winter was beautiful. Snow outside, warmth inside. We were decorating the house, preparing for the New Year's party. I was filming her with my phone, teasing. "Hold still, Maria. You're ruining my masterpiece." She laughed, that soft laugh that made everything right again. Then she coughed. Just once. I turned. "You okay?" She smiled faintly. "Just a cold, Jack. Don't worry." I nodded, though something inside me whispered otherwise. I remember her hand brushing mine as she placed the final ribbon on the tree. I remember her eyes shining when Dulcie switched on the lights. That moment, so small, so ordinary, became the last piece of peace I ever knew. If I had known what was coming, I would have held her closer, kissed her longer, listened to her breathe. But I didn't know. None of us did. Now, every time the clock strikes midnight, I don't hear celebration. I hear her heartbeat, the one that stopped when the world cheered for a new beginning. It was Christmas morning, the kind that smelled like cinnamon and hope. Maria was already in the kitchen when I woke up, humming softly, her hair tied up, hands covered in flour. She looked stronger than she had in weeks. Dulce sat beside her, wrapping gifts with ribbons that refused to behave. I stood at the doorway for a while, just watching, trying to memorize everything, the light, her voice, the sound of my children laughing. Later, when she turned to me and smiled, I handed her a small box. "It's nothing fancy," I said, trying to sound casual. She opened it carefully, her eyes softening when she saw the old clock inside. Brass frame, simple face, the engraving at the back. "To Maria, the woman who makes every second worth living." She laughed under her breath, a tear almost breaking free. "Jack, it's beautiful." "Hang it where you can see it," I said. She nodded and placed it on the living room wall, right above the fireplace. "Perfect," she whispered. "Now the house feels complete." That afternoon, she planned the New Year's party. Friends, family, good food, too much noise. Dulce was buzzing with excitement. "This year, I'll film everything, the countdown, the fireworks, all of it." I pretended to groan. "Just don't film me eating cake again, okay? Some things are not meant for public humiliation." Maria laughed. "Oh, come on, you looked adorable last year." Adorable? I looked like a man losing a fight with frosting. For a moment, it felt like time itself had stopped to watch us. The snow outside, the laughter inside, all of it so fragile, so alive. I didn't know then that I was giving her the last gift she would ever receive, and that the little clock she hung on the wall would stop ticking exactly when her heart did. I didn't know that Dulce's camera, the one she was so proud of, would capture more than fireworks. It would capture the end of everything. Sometimes I still hear it, the faint click of that old clock, the sound of seconds passing before the world changed forever. The house was full that night. Friends, neighbors, even my sister Maureen, who always spoke too loudly. Music filled the air, laughter echoed through every room. Susan and Dulcie hung balloons near the window while Maria moved gracefully among the guests, smiling as if the world belonged to her. But I saw it, the way she leaned on the chair for balance, how her breath caught between sentences. When she passed by, I whispered, "You okay?" She smiled softly. "I'm fine. Don't let the kids see me weak." I wanted to tell her to rest, but she was already drifting away, that same stubborn warmth in her eyes. Across the room, Maureen had Dulce cornered, talking about college. Maria stepped in, laughing. Morian, it's New Year's Eve, not a career fair. She took Dulce's hand and led her away. In the corner, music softened. Maria brushed her daughter's hair back and whispered, "I had the best Christmas ever, Lucy. I love you." Dulce smiled, surprised by the nickname. "I love you too, Mom." I stood there watching them, my glass halfway raised. For a moment the noise faded, and all I saw was Maria, her hair catching the glow of the lights, her laughter melting into the sound of the crowd. I remember thinking, if anyone asked me what happiness looks like, I'd point right there, to her. She looked back at me then, just a glance, and everything in the world felt whole. Bright, fragile, perfect. Outside, someone tested the fireworks. The sound cracked through the night, making people cheer. Maria laughed, covering her ears, and I laughed too. I didn't know that was the last sound I'd ever hear her make, the last smile I'd ever see, the last moment before everything went quiet. The countdown began, voices rising, glasses clinking, laughter echoing through the house. 10, 9, 8, 7. Dulce's camera was rolling, her voice bright and trembling with excitement. Maria was smiling, her hand wrapped around the stem of her glass. I caught her eye and winked. For 1 second, everything felt alive, the kind of happiness you wish you could hold forever. Then came 5. Her smile faded. The glass slipped from her hand. She fell before I even understood what was happening. "Maria!" I shouted, rushing forward. The music stopped. The camera kept recording. Someone screamed, "Call 911." Fireworks exploded outside, brilliant colors flashing through the windows, cruelly celebrating while my world collapsed. I knelt beside her, my hands trembling against her still chest. "Maria, please! Look at me, sweetheart! Stay with me!" Her skin was cold, her eyes unfocused. I pressed my ear against her, searching for a heartbeat that wasn't there. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Paramedics burst in, shouting orders, but I barely heard them. I held her hand as they worked, pressing, shouting, trying. One of them looked up, and I saw the answer before he spoke. The old clock on the wall, the one I gave her, had stopped. The second hand froze at exactly midnight. I just stared at it, my mind empty, my chest burning. Around me, people were still cheering outside, counting down a new beginning. I was holding an ending. Someone tried to pull me back, but I couldn't move. My fingers clung to hers, lifeless but still warm, as if warmth alone could bring her back. Then Dulce's camera slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. The screen tilted sideways, recording nothing but flashes of light, the crackle of fireworks, and my face, pale, broken, caught between darkness and flame. That was how the new year began, with the world celebrating, and my heart standing still. The funeral was quiet, too quiet for someone who had filled every room with warmth. Snow fell in heavy sheets that morning, covering the ground like a white shroud. I remember standing there, unable to move, the wind cutting through my coat while the priest's words blurred into nothing. Dulce held my arm but didn't cry. Mask stared at the ground, too young to understand how something so alive could vanish completely. After the service, Moran stayed to help. She washed dishes no one had the strength to touch, folded the blankets Maria had chosen for Christmas. "You have to be strong, Jack," she said quietly. "For the kids." I nodded, though strength had been buried with her. A year passed. The clock she loved hung on the wall, frozen at midnight. I went back to teaching, but every time the school bell rang, it sounded like that same countdown. 10, 9, 8. The night everything stopped, Dulce spent evenings upstairs replaying the video she filmed that night. I wanted to tell her to stop, but how could I take away the only way she could still hear her mother's voice? Mask changed too. He used to laugh easily, now he barely spoke. One week he didn't go to school. When the principal called, I learned he'd gotten into a fight. The other boy called him the kid with no mom. That night he said, "You don't get it, Dad. They say she's gone, but I still see her everywhere. I hate it." Then he slammed the door. I stood in the hallway, not sure whether to knock or walk away. At school, my principal asked if I was all right. "You've been distracted," he said. I smiled and lied. "Just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was lost. Every lesson about time moving forward felt like a lie. In my house, time had stopped at 12 o'clock. One night, I heard something upstairs. A faint sound, like quiet sobbing mixed with the hum of an old video. I followed it to Dulce's room. She was sitting on the floor, her face lit by the blue glow of the screen. On it, her mother was laughing, the countdown still frozen at 5. I stood there for a moment, unable to move. Then I knelt beside her and gently turned off the video. She didn't resist, just whispered, "I only wanted to remember her voice, Dad. It's starting to fade." Her words broke something in me. I pulled her close, but she didn't cry. She just sat there, her head against my chest, breathing in silence. A few days later, I heard another crash, this time from Mask's room, the sound of shattering glass. I ran in and saw him standing beside the broken picture frame of Maria, his fists clenched. "She left us!" he screamed. "She just left!" I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she never wanted to go, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I grabbed him and held on as he kicked, fought, and finally went still. My tears fell onto his hair, and for a while, neither of us spoke. There are no right words for grief, only silence. Later that week, while cleaning the living room, I noticed the old clock on the wall, the one I gave her, slightly tilted. When I reached to fix it, something slipped out from behind it, a folded piece of paper written in Dulce's careful handwriting. "Hi, Mom. I don't know if you can read this. I'm trying to be brave like you. I miss your laugh. I miss the way you said my name when I was scared. If heaven is real, I hope it sounds like your voice." I stood there, holding that letter, unable to breathe. The house was silent, except for the faint tick of the clock. I'd replaced its batteries days earlier without realizing. It was running again. Time was moving, even if we weren't. I put the letter back where it belonged and whispered, "She heard you, Dulce. I know she did." Then I sat there in the half-light, feeling something I hadn't in a long time. Not peace exactly, but the small, trembling beginning of it. We didn't throw a party that year. No guests, no music, no lights strung across the porch. The house stayed quiet, as if afraid to wake the memories sleeping inside it. That afternoon, Dulce came downstairs holding the old clock, the one Maria had loved, the one that stopped the night she died. "Can we make it work again?" she asked softly. "Just once. I want it to reach midnight." I hesitated, then nodded. We sat at the kitchen table together while I replaced the tiny battery, her fingers brushing the edge of the brass frame as if it were something sacred. When I set the hands back to 11:59 and turned the dial, the clock began to whisper again. Tick, tick, tick. After a year of silence, that small sound felt like a heartbeat returning to the house. That night, we didn't count down. We didn't even talk much. We just watched Maria's favorite movie, the one she used to make us sit through every New Year's Eve, pretending not to cry at the ending. The three of us sat close on the couch, the light of the screen flickering across our faces. When the first fireworks started outside, the sky flashing red and gold, I felt something shift. Not joy exactly, but something softer. I looked at my children and said quietly, "Your mom's watching with us tonight." Dulcie smiled through tears. Mask leaned against her shoulder, and for the first time in a year, he laughed. Small, unsteady, but real. The old clock ticked louder, its second hand trembling toward midnight. Dulcie looked up at it, then whispered, "Happy New Year, Mom." For a long moment, we just sat there listening to the sound of time moving again. Steady, fragile, alive. The fireworks faded, but the echo of that ticking stayed, like a promise that life, somehow, was still continuing. Morning came quietly. The first day of a new year. Snow covered the yard like a fresh sheet of paper, untouched and waiting to be written on. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon and apples, the scent of Maria's kitchen. Dulce and Mask stood beside me as I showed them how to make her apple pie, the way she used to. Thin slices, too much sugar, a little vanilla at the end. They laughed when I dropped flour on the counter, and for a moment it almost felt like she was there, teasing me as she always did. When we sat down at the table, the clock caught my eye. It read 0001. For the first time since that night, it had passed midnight. The hands kept moving, steady and sure, no longer trapped in that frozen second where everything had ended. I looked up at the window, at the sky painted pale by snowlight, and whispered, "Thank you for giving me one more minute." The kids didn't hear. They were busy tasting the pie, arguing about whose slice looked better. I just sat there, listening to the quiet, to the sound of their laughter, and to the gentle ticking of the clock, proof that life, fragile as it is, continues. New Year isn't about forgetting the year before. It's about finding the courage to keep living, even when your heart still aches. My name is Jack Harris, and the night the clock stopped was the night I learned that love never dies.